Capes and Tights. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg, and this is a pop culture and comic book podcast. Crazy, huh? Well, this week I'm alone. Adam's on vacation, visiting. I say vacation. He's visiting family. That's what he's doing. So this week we have Ben Goldsmith, author, co-creator, along with Ed Smith, who's not on this episode, but Ben is, of Second Place comic book over at Source Point Press, as well as the author of a couple other books that you'll hear about on this podcast. We had him join us to talk his book, Second Place comic book. So check us out, Facebook and Instagram at Capes and Tights Podcast, on Twitter at Capes Tights Pod, and capesandtights.com, as well as Apple and Spotify and all your major podcasting platforms out there. This is Ben Goldsmith, co-creator of Second Place Comic, here for this episode. Enjoy, everybody. How's it going, man?
Hello, howdy, howdy.
Exactly right. So we were supposed to do this a couple weeks back, and there was a mishap, a vehicle accident that kind of derailed it, which was crazy because you were like got a phone call, and then you're like in your parking lot talking to me on Zoom, being like, "I got to go. We can't do this right now." I was like, "Absolutely, take care of your life. Figure that out, and then we'll talk later." And finally got to do this. But yesterday, my wife and I decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to go for a drive. My son took a shorter nap in the afternoon. So we say, hey, we'll get in the car, we'll drive, we'll go somewhere. And we decided to drive into Bangor here in Maine. And there was a car on the bridge driving directly at us. Like full on. We're just driving along. My wife goes, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm like, what's going on? And there's a couple of people on the bridge, like on the right, like crossing the bridge, and I was like, hey, how about we I thought they were like jumping off or jumping into the road or something, so I was paying attention to them, not to looking ahead and seeing a car coming directly at us. Luckily the car swerved back into the lane and we were able to miss them, but I thought it was very ironic, the fact that we were about to record today and then yesterday we almost got a head-on collision on a bridge. I don't know what she was thinking or what, but like maybe she thought it was a 2-lane bridge. I don't know. We were this close to head-on collision with the car the day before we record this.
I don't want to be the guy that brings about car accidents into the world with my presence.
It was crazy. I don't know what it was. Like, I don't like. If obviously for like most of those people are drunk, right? Like the people who go in the wrong lane, or like I don't know, having some sort of medical condition or something. But she just didn't realize that she was in the wrong lane, it looked like, and she finally was able to swerve over and miss us. And I told my wife, I was like, we didn't need to go anywhere. We went for a drive to kind of like see if my son would take a nap while we were driving. And it always frustrates me. The worst things happen, I think, to me when I don't need to be doing the thing that I'm doing. And I decide to do it anyway. Like, you didn't need to do this or that or whatever, and something bad happens, but we're safe, we're sound.
My fiance's accident, to give context to everyone, is she was driving and this lady pulled in front of her at 80 miles per hour on the Pike, which is like the main road in Boston. And the girl had a foot cramp, slammed on the brakes, smashed the car. Her car spun 3 times. She told me that Diamonds by Rihanna was playing. So we joke like, now anytime she hears that song, it'll be in like slow mo, like shine
exactly
like a diamond, like
when you like put that song comes on, you immediately skip it. Now you're like, oh shit, some bad's gonna happen.
Yeah. Sorry, Rihanna.
Yeah, exactly. But we're
big fan of the podcast. I heard Rihanna.
Exactly right. Yeah, big fan of everything. So we're here to talk about comic books, obviously, and
thank you for having me back, rescheduling all that.
Exactly. And it's funny, we're my normal co-host Adam is in North Carolina right now visiting some family, and today, this afternoon, we're supposed to be doing the first episode. We're pre-recording for our Star Wars week we were doing at the beginning of May, and he just texted me and said that the internet went down there, so we almost had a 2-episode recording day, but today now we're only going to do 1 because the internet's down there. So
we probably just spilt some vinegar-based barbecue sauce on their internet cords down there.
Yes, exactly.
the only thing I know about North Carolina. They're probably watching a Tar Heels game, man.
Well, it's probably warmer weather than we have here in New England, so I don't know. Maybe they're
Oh yeah.
outside. They just want to be
Oh,
outside all day. That's what it is. He's making up some sort of excuse to not be inside recording a podcast.
I get that. I cannot. It's the time change was less yesterday too, and
Yeah,
I cannot zone
get
in.
on that. Yeah, but so you're a comic book creator. That's what we're
I
gonna
do
call you.
that. I do.
And first of all, I'd like to know a little bit about the people I talk to. So, how did you get into comics in the first place? Not creating comic books, but like reading. What's your background in reading comic books?
I got my first comic book from a buddy. It was The Tick, and it was when the cartoon was on. So I like the irreverence of it. I didn't really think that there was a lot of that same irreverence in other media. And then kind of moved from there. But um, I got really into it with New 52. It was when I got like obsessed with collecting and then key issues and all that kind of stuff. And like when it was nice because when I was really getting into it, I was near the Beverly Hills Public Library, and that place is massive. So you could choose. I mean, I would just go in there and decimate the graphic novel section. And then after that, I lived in New York, and once again, like, you're pretty good with libraries out there too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was huge. I mean, like, I remember being on the subway and just crushing, Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, and it was definitely I liked it, and then I liked it a lot. Which I don't know. Some people kind of. I guess I came a little later. Some people lock in and then stay there, but it was a slow push towards the cliff, and then the New 52 was like, boink,
Yeah, and that's similar to my background, where I was like I was a smaller child. I was like, oh yeah, I like comic books and so on, but like it was a gap in the middle there where I kind of like liked them, but really didn't care much about them. And then it was a Secret Wars for Marvel. In the 2015, 2014 range, where it really got really back into it and was like, okay, this is what I like. This is my obsession now. This is my thing. And, so it's like weird how there's a gap there for a lot of us that didn't like it. Me, it was the X-Men cartoon. Really, the early 90s X-Men cartoon was a huge thing. And I know a lot of people who were like that. That's what got me into comic books too. So, but yeah, the Tick, I can understand why the Tick would be something for you, because I mean I can see the Tick in your comic book here, second place. I can see
I mean, definitely of all books that I'm working on, the second place, has the most of that.
Well, how did second place come along? How is this? I mean, we can talk multiple things, but like I think second place is really what I wanted to focus on. But like,
so I'll give some context for this one. Second place is my book that's out right now. It is a mockumentary style comic book about bodybuilding aliens. It'll be in 4 parts. Comes out from Source Point Press. The 4th one today is the 12th, 13th, something like that of March.
14th of March, but yeah, right around there.
Yeah, 14th of March. Oh crap, my sister's birthday's tomorrow. Hopefully I gotta call her. Thank you for reminding me. And that was the picture. I saw it. I saw it up there, and nice little iPad situation there.
I'm a digital person. I don't know if that, while you're doing to interrupt you, but like to me is a lot of the digital. I buy physical comic books and I have collections. There's a lot of times you'll see me buy it both digitally and physically, so I can own it and collect it and hold it. But like something about reading digitally to me has been way more, I don't know, percent. I don't know. I can read in bed with the lights off.
Well, that's the biggest thing, right? It's like the difference between the original Game Boy and then the Game Boy with the backlight. It was a game changer in that way. Because then you weren't because I can only really read comics during bright light.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty blind. So but anyway, so second place came about because I moved back to Massachusetts, where I am now, where I'm from originally, and a buddy of mine, he and I used to go out to lunch and just talk about comics, and he could draw a little bit, and I was like, well, man, let's goof around on something, and. And I asked him, I was like, what do you like to draw? And he's like, well, I like to draw jacked aliens. and that was the start of the conversation. So I kind of worked backwards from that. I was like, well, all right, jacked aliens, okay, well, alien bodybuilding. Okay, these aliens, they like Earth bodybuilding, so that kind of plays on the body dysmorphia of it, where it's not even your species. And then, and there's a competition, and then people film competitions. Mockumentaries are filmed. Oh my God, no one's done a mockumentary comic book. Boom.
Let's do that.
Yeah, and so he actually ended up, and then honestly, like maybe like 5 years went by. He was like, that's not really something I want to do. And I was like, hey, that's fine. I get it. He doesn't even work in this industry. And I met, sorry.
You're good. Time change. See, I'm used to this now. I have he's a 10-month-old baby. So I'm up at 5:30 in the morning now anyway. So.
Sweet Lord. Yes. Oh yeah, you've got yours. Like you've got your Marvel cup. I found that on the podcast, your mug says a lot. Like, here's my
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And see, we got coming up here at the Bangor Comic and Toy Con, there are going to be some horror guests on that at that con.
Oh, is that true? I'm at that show. I'm very actually excited. I got to find a place to stay. If you know any good hotels, you have to let me know, because I haven't started looking yet. But I'll sleep. Is there extra room in the crib?
Yeah, exactly, right there. I'll just kick him out. That's fine. He can sleep outside. He can sleep in the tent. Comic books are more important to me than my son.
I want you to learn this from an early age, buddy.
So when you're traveling the circuits around the at San Diego Comic-Con promoting your comic books, I'd be like, yeah, this guy slept in my crib. Back in the day, so I knew him before he was something.
Yeah, exactly. And let me tell you something. He sleeps so adorable, loud. He's a snorer, but it's adorable. It's cute.
Oh,
but yeah, man. So I second place, and then so I a couple of years later, I ended up meeting this guy Ed Smith, who he is a New Hampshire local, and he kind of was in with the crew like Ian Chase Nichols and Rich Woodall, and I was like, oh well, your style is really. Because I'd done the stuff before with Seance Room, which was super serious, super moody. And then RV9 for Mad Cave Studios, which was like really futuristic, very Marvel art. Actually, the guy Travis who drew it is currently drawing for DC. And so I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I want it to be cartoony. I want it to look sort of silly, because the concept is a little silly too. And Ed does a really good, you can see there, really good cartoonist style.
Yes.
So we hooked up, and he started working on it, and then we got it picked up at Source Point Press. I remember calling him from Toronto Comic Con. He was very excited, and then he was working on it, and then had essentially a heart attack, and almost died making this comic book. So he was in the hospital for a long time, and this was obviously on the back burner, but he got better and got even more focused and more dedicated, and the quality of the work got better, and you could tell he definitely had a come to Jesus moment. And my fiance's leaving, so I'm gonna say bye to her. Bye, love. Yeah. don't crash. Yeah. It wasn't her fault. It was not her fault.
That's fine.
And bye, love. So yeah, but so then he got back, and it's pretty inspiring, honestly, to see how, and it's also a little funny, because I'm a slight more jaded now, and this is his first comic book really that's out. So he's like really excited about everything, and I'm like, yeah. Like, we're gonna it's gonna be a cartoon. Yeah. Well, all right, if it happens, that's good. So but it's now I'm like, oh, I know what I was like 5 years ago. Like I can see how that was, and I'm looking forward to just getting grumpier.
I can see why you would say, there's certain comic books that I can see Well, first of all, I like to put the little caveat out to the listeners and stuff that I don't like talking to people that I don't like their comic book, if that makes any sense. So like
Yeah.
if you were to send me a sample of, like, those people have sent us samples of books and I just don't respond back basically because I can't say no, I don't want to do your have you on as a guest because I don't like your comic book. But like,
Yeah,
and it's not even like even if I didn't like the concept of it, it's well written and it's well drawn. So like the artwork and the writing is good. So that way I will talk to you. Even if I was like, weightlifting aliens, that's stupid. I wouldn't. I would still talk to you because it makes sense because I want other people to be introduced to this. But like, there's definitely some books that Adam and I had read. Here's some samples. I sent it to Adam. He sent it to me. We read it and we're like, yeah, maybe we should contact them next week to have them come on, in a couple of weeks. And he's like, yeah, sounds good. And we finished reading it. And I texted him. I said, do you read it? He goes, yeah, you do. You too? He goes, that was tough. And I go, yeah, that was tough. He goes, maybe we shouldn't contact them. I'm like, yeah, see, so we shouldn't contact them. So when we got connected through, who did you commented on something?
Probably through Schmalky.
No, it wasn't Schmalky though. It was someone else.
I think it was Zuckerberg. We're both real good friends with Mark Zuckerberg.
It was someone else local that we've either had or want to have as a guest or so on. And you had commented, we connected through that and so on. And you sent me a sample. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely someone that I want to talk to. But back to why I wanted to bring this up is that I can see it as a cartoon. Like I could see it on like Cartoon Network or some sort of like,
dude. I mean, that's the goal for sure. No question. Especially, like I said, the mockumentary element is awesome. But the bodybuilding, I don't want to wax too philosophical about it because that's annoying. But ultimately, like, it's a Trojan horse of a thing, right? Like I'm getting you in the door with bodybuilding aliens, huh? And then there's mockumentary, huh? Mm-hmm. And then once you're kind of in, because you're like, oh, those two, that's kind of a neat. Then it's like, oh, and by the way, it's actually about sliding doors. What decisions did I make that were the wrong ones? How do I see myself as a through success and through maybe failure? Like it's so much more than what the and that's kind of how I like it too, because my favorite my ethos on most stuff is don't tell me anything. Like I want to go in 100% fresh, because I'd prefer to be pleasantly surprised by things. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Which I'm not doing a good job of for other people right now because I'm telling a lot. But I think I also know people who could give a shit if they know the entire movie or not. Like for them, it's a lot of other things. But maybe it's just because I as a writer, I'm like I want to see if I can be brought into this and surprised and so because ultimately, I mean, how do people, do you want, can I tell like a little bit about the
whatever you want.
I mean, so the bodybuilding aliens and the mockumentary thing, the lead character there, Farig, the big green fella, he started this bodybuilding competition and he would always come in first place, and this cat Army Haguthataya would always come in second place. By the way, Haguthataya, we had to go back and forth so many times to make sure we spelled it right, or we spelled it like uniformly throughout the book, because it would always be, because it's like, because it's a dig on Schwarzenegger's name obviously, but like it has to be consistent, which it wasn't. I
guess you could also make it as a joke too, as like no one really knows how to say his name or spell his name.
The letterer Justin Birch, who's incredible, he said that at one point, and I was like, I think it'll just read like we
but you don't know what you're doing.
Because like we did actually consider that, which is, it's really funny that you say that, man. But so he it was first place, second place, always back and forth, and then our green fellow there, Farrig, he was offered a movie contract to go be a big movie star, and the same day he found out his girlfriend was pregnant. So as this book picks up, we have already seen that he has decided to actually forego the movies, become a family, and open up his gym. And he's a pretty happy dude about it. Like his son is going to be competing for the first time, and he's going to be a judge instead, the dad, and things are going pretty well. They're filming the documentary about it, but we then find out that Army is coming back to film his own documentary, and it sort of brings up a lot of that could have been me, you know, like I should have been the guy to go off and be the movie star, because Army did go become the movie star. You know, but at the same time, there's a character who's a foot.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
you know, it's
that's the fun part about it, because you brought that idea of like the Office mockumentary style into it, which the Office we all relate to. We watch and go, oh my gosh, that's really like working in an office. If you've ever worked in an office, there's certain, I mean, obviously to a 10th degree, but like there's this aspect of watching The Office and saying it relates to regular life. Same thing with what people always say about Seinfeld. But there's like, you can relate this to regular life, but in the same sense, you have to disassociate yourself with it because it's weightlifting aliens. Like
right,
you have to like you get this, I get to be in another world, another universe, but also have this style of show or reading that I like, which is the mockumentary style. So you have that both. It lets you escape. I mean, it's I'm gonna bring it up because I just finished reading it last night with Stray Dogs. Did you read Stray Dogs at all?
No,
By Tony Fleeks, and I forget her name as an artist, but he does Star Wars Adventures, and he does My Little Pony. He's an artist, but he wrote this book Stray Dogs, and it's basically the only reason you mentioned about not knowing a lot about the book and then reading it. Like, what the one line that I read about the book that I really wanted to make me read it was like Lady and the Tramp meets Silence of the Lambs.
Oh Jesus!
Because the book is about dogs that are stray dogs, like they're adopted dogs that like are finding out more information about their owner. That's really scary, and like, but it's drawn in a way that you would look at it as like all dogs go to heaven, or Lady and the Tramp, or
I've seen
even
the
Secret Life of
art.
Pets.
I definitely know what you're talking about there. Yeah.
So it's like you bring yourself and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is like watching a childhood movie of mine, but there's like murdering and blood and stuff like that in it. And it was, it just reminded me a lot of like, okay, it's real life, but you're just disassociating yourself a little bit with it because it's talking dogs, or dogs that can talk to themselves, like on Secret Life of Pets or anything like that.
Right. That intentional juxtaposition is a dangerous game to play, right? Because if it fails ugly. But when it wins big. I think, you just have to understand, like, I can't say much about Stray Dogs. I have seen the interior art, but I don't know what the story is. But especially with Second Place, like, you go in for the funsies, and then all right. So Scrubs. Do you ever watch Scrubs, the TV show?
I've watched a long time ago. I watched like the first season or two, but I hadn't. Yes, I've seen it. But yes,
there's a lot of episodes of Scrubs that take you in with the warm and fuzzies, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is actually, I'm feeling something. Like it's not a like a deceitful turn. It's just that. That's also kind of life. Like, we could be recording a podcast and then I'll get a call from my fiance who is in a horrible wreck. And then after that, I'm running across I-90 with cops trying to stop me because they don't know if I'm just a crazy guy. And I'm yelling, I'm her fiance.
I know her.
Yeah. And then, to flashing lights and everything like that just happens, it's not, so, but if you build characters, then you can go with them through those moments and it doesn't feel jarring, which I hope we did. Did you get a chance to read the ending? Did I send you all 4?
No, I only got the one, but I will purchase the other ones. Don't worry. Okay. The thing is, like, I've got a digital, when I had Jeremy Dauber on a few months back to talk about his book, they sent me the physical copy of the book. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Thank you very much. But then later on, I had Douglas Woke on to talk about all of the Marvels book, and they sent me a PDF version of the book. And I was like, you know what? I like this guy. I like the book. I'm going to go out and physically buy the book too. So I like the idea of having me supporting you guys as well. So Source Point Press, well, as we're talking about purchasing it, you can obviously purchase it there, but what made the connection of doing that and not doing it on your own? I know, not that there's anything bad about either one, but like not doing a Kickstarter or try to produce this on your own.
I already had a relation with them, and then the real impediment to any sort of success financially is that I wasn't born rich. No, is that I didn't. I mean, printing costs are exorbitant. So if they can take care of that, you know, and I don't make a lot of money back, but at the same time, I don't mind. Like I'll buy my copies and I'll go to my cons and I'll make money through that, you know. And just having one piece off my back is so
Yeah.
nice. You know,
I don't blame you at all. I just, this is
yeah,
always the thing I wonder nowadays is the conversations you have with people is that creator owned stuff is just, you know, what the best option is. I mean, so Ryan Lassard is the one I think we connected through on Facebook, and he did it. He does it Kickstarter. He's doing one issue at a time and so on. That's one way to do it. You know, obviously a good friend of all of ours, Ben Bishop, obviously he does Kickstarter, but he also does other stuff and so on. And like, there's just different ways of doing it. And I think there's no issue with source. I mean, I know my local comic book shop in Bangor can get your book.
yeah.
And that's a huge thing to me. If I was me, it would be more like maybe make a little bit less money and put it in front of more eyes. And
Yeah,
that's a huge thing too. So, I mean, I think with Source Point, it helps. I mean, you guys, I mean, he literally carries 2 or 3 Source Point books. And I don't think he was ordering yours until I said something, but that's a different story.
Son of a gun. That's dirty. No, I also know that this book was not going to be, it's definitely on the outlier book, right? Like it's a thing where I think they did it because they knew me from Seance Room, you know. But I also did a book with them called Beyond the Demon and the Sea, which was Ben Templesmith did the cover for me, but all the interior art was tattoo art, like all old school traditional Sailor Jerry tattooing, front to back, whole thing. And that one had done really well. So I think they had kind of seen
Ben Templesmith.
Yeah.
Are you just gonna get people to work with you that have either Ben or Smith or you know, I didn't know if you were.
yeah, man. I gotta find Ben Bishop, because Ben. I asked him to help out sometimes too. So yeah, man, I'm gonna be really Ben centric from now on.
Ben or Smith. I mean, Ed Smith. You know, you have those Smiths in there and the Bens in there.
I didn't even think of that. Oh my God, that's right. Anyone with a nice generic Anglo-Saxon endings name, yeah, absolutely. I need a more Jones in my life. That's pretty good, dude.
Yes, I don't know. I was just kind of funny. You got like when you started speaking, I started like just like ignoring what you were saying for a second there because I'm like, did he just say what I think he just said? I mean, there's too many connections there. There's too many Smiths and Bens, and you know, I don't know, man. Is it all fake? Here's an idea. You're just really bad at making up fake people's names. You're doing all of the work.
These are just coming up with fake people. These are for sure my personalities. And I'm what? No.
You're talking to yourself right now?
No, that's Ben Templesmith over there. Ed?
At least I heard your fiance, so I know she is real.
Yeah, that's true. I did buy that voice app for good purpose. So
you're only doing 4.4. This is only a 4-print. Second place is issues 1 through 4, and you're done with that, and then you're moving on to something else, or is this like?
Well, so we wrote out and have started thumbnailing and sketching up a book, a 3rd place. So we will be skipping 1st place entirely. Actually, the way what I would love to do, but I mean, here's the other side of things is the business side. It's like they didn't get enough. I mean, your comic book store didn't even get it until you said anything, right? Like they didn't make enough money from this book to merit 3rd place, and not being on the Comic-Con trail while it was out, you know, also hurt a lot. So I don't think it's gonna be big enough. You know, like I love it to death. I think it's wonderful, and you know, maybe people will find it after the fact and go, oh crap, I should have been reading this, and then I'd be thrilled. But realistically, it's not that way. So, but in case it is, like I wrote out 3rd place, so you know, and which sort of explores like more of a person. You know, everyone was fighting who came in 1st and 2nd. Well, you got a guy who's in 3rd place, and he doesn't care because he was just always losing. So like, and now you know what happens when that guy, you know, because the dude who always loses gets tough. Right. And then he ends up becoming a massive success and then wants to shut them down. It's like a dodgeball sort of situation, you know. And then 1st place would be the 3rd one, and that would be the prequel. And so that way could really screw with people, a la Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1, and then never release Part 2. You know, that would be.
Well, wasn't there rumors that he's creating it?
I mean, at this point, he's like 1,000 years old. I mean, that'll never happen.
I think it's like he's played the joke long enough. It's like if he came out with it now, we'd still laugh and we'd still be like, "Oh, that was good. Yeah, that was great." But like, I'd watch it.
Yeah. Or if History of the World Part 2 was just a giant question mark, that'd be
Yes.
that. I mean,
Or had nothing to do with it. Like it was completely different, completely
Yeah.
different actors, everything. It just happens to be a similar name.
I think they would have to, right? B. Arthur's dead. Gregory Hines is dead. Like everyone who was in it is dead. So
they're bringing him back to life. You don't know that? CGI, man. Crazy thing.
Right, exactly. The hologram, that shit. Yeah.
I mean, they made what's his name, Luke Skywalker, look young and crap like that on Disney Plus.
So yeah, man. So that's the thing. So anyone who's watching this right now, go be one of those people who now knows about second place, and in a world full of this girl's got big boobs and kills people, and this guy's got superpowers that are a little different. Go buy a book that's a mockumentary bodybuilding alien book.
To me. And I think if we talked 2 years ago, you could not have convinced me to buy something that wasn't, one of the big two. I don't read much DC, so it'd be one of Marvel. It was 2020, probably during the beginning of the pandemic, when I was starting to read a lot more books because I was home a lot more. Was a lot more Image and other stuff that's independently published. A lot more Scout and things like that. That maybe go, I can read something that doesn't have to do with a superhero. Like I could read something that has to do with like horror, or something's killing the children, or nail biter, or I could read something like a weightlifting bodybuilder. Now I just feel like, I don't know, I have to still read my Marvel and still get my superhero fix.
Of course.
But like there is also, maybe it's also because I watch a lot of it on TV that I don't need to get as much of a superhero fix in the comics. I can get, the other stuff. I don't like to watch horror movies, but I'll read horror comic books. That's weird.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool. Yeah. And the other thing too is like trying to connect things too, because even with there's a B cover for the first issue of Second Place that was done by the artist of Chew.
Oh, yep.
So your Image books there, and Rob Guillory, and he is incredible, and I feel like Chew, our book would sit nicely next to Chew. So I asked Rob, and he said yes, and the cover is stunning. I can even I'll find it for you guys, but so there is a world where both can exist. I made the switch probably, I'd say fully, probably about 4 years ago, where now I actually don't read anything Marvel or DC, like at all.
And I don't blame you. It's not like it's, oh yeah. I was just looking at it. That's great. But I don't blame people who don't. And it's one of those, what I do like to see is the idea that a lot of people out there nowadays might stumble upon, Disney Plus TV show or a Marvel movie, and then maybe stumble into a comic book, and then they get hooked on comics. I mean, to me, it's a world that I love to live in and I love to read. And so if you can see something on the big screen that forces you to go to your LCS and buy a comic book, that's awesome. But I feel like a lot more of the independent stuff is the opposite way, where it's like we all read Second Place and then we see it on Netflix. Like that's the difference between some independent publishing of books or comic books, that you see it the opposite way. There was only a few things that happened that way. Why the Last Man? Obviously it was a Vertigo book, but still it was, I saw that on that was going to come out as a TV show.
Was it good? I never saw it.
It was good. We actually had this showrunner on the show, on our show, and she was all about it. It was great. It was just it was 10 years too late, if that makes any sense. Like all the stuff that Brian K. Vaughan was doing with Why the Last Man was so not controversial, but like ahead of its time in writing about this, that when it was put on TV nowadays, it just looks like it just fit in. Like a lot of the quote unquote woke stuff that she was talking about as a showrunner, it felt like it just, and then so because of the pandemic, there was this writing, or like they usually wait for streaming service stuff, like was like 6 months to a year after, or 6 months after the show finishes streaming, where they actually make the decision on cutting it or keeping it. And because of the pandemic, they actually cut it before the season even ended. And so the show, well, it finished the season, but there's no season 2, and they were trying to find a new home for it and they couldn't. So it's no longer going to be on TV anymore. It's one season. It was good. It just, again, I think if it was made 10 years ago, it would have been riveting, and it would have been on for 5 seasons, and we would have been like, oh my gosh, this is Brian K. Vaughan at his best.
Yeah.
But maybe read the comic book. So it was like there is that both back and forth things. But I think a lot more independent, like stuff like yours, would make me think that if it saw it on the TV screen, that it came in comic book form first.
Well, the nice thing about the Why the Last Man thing is, at least, like, all right, you like the season, great, because there's a whole lot more. You know what I mean? So that's one of those where it works out pretty well, because you know, it would be like if Firefly was a comic first and then the show ended, but we were like, it's cool, I know what happens, and they don't rush it in Serenity. It's a comic and it's great, you know.
Well, my wife and I are watching the show that was on NBC back in 2012-ish called Revolution. It was like the power goes out, all power goes out all of a sudden, and it's a post-apocalyptic, so it shows that, and then 15 years later, like halfway through the episode, goes to 15 years later, and it's talking about them living in a post-apocalyptic world. But I believe that was demise was the writer's strike. It was right around that time, and so that show only got 2 seasons, but they had written a 3rd season. And nowadays, you would have seen it go from NBC to Netflix, and Netflix would have finished the season now, or Hulu or whatever. Right. That obviously wasn't an option back there. So DC actually picked up digitally season 3 as a comic book. And so when we finish watching season 2, we'll be able to read the digital comic books. I can find them on the internet somewhere. It was like they released them by JPEGs on Twitter or something like that. They were trying to like get their social media up or something. And so I'll find that somewhere, and we can able to finish the series. I mean, that's a cool thing to me. If any show wants to do that, gets canceled, finish it as a comic book. I think it'd be badass.
That releasing something as a JPEG on Twitter sounds like the most PR person. It's like, you know, someone who didn't sleep that night and was drinking way too much coffee was like, guys, we're gonna revolutionize the game, okay? JPEGs on Twitter. And then,
Spider-Man No Way Home's trailer hit on Twitter first.
Huh?
Spider-Man No Way Home, the trailer that like was released and like got 1 billion views or whatever. Yeah. Back in the early somewhere in time in November or something like that. They released it for like 30 minutes prior to anything else on Twitter. So you get to watch a Twitter video, like one of those stupid videos that don't work very well on your phone.
Yeah.
YouTube, man. YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
No, but it sounded like someone was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. The people are going to flock and follow our Twitter.
It's going to be revolutionary, okay? We're going to be up with the Gen Z, okay? This Gen Z thing, we're doing it, guys. We're doing it. We're revolutionizing the game. We're going to be ahead of the curve, We're going to be above the watercress. We're going to be, it's like, fuck you with all your sayings. Like, just...
Yes. That person's probably living in their basement now. They got fired because it didn't work out the way they wanted it to. But so I mean, finishing it as a comic book, like I said, would be awesome. So if anything out there ever does that, I think just one last thing on this was the show Blacklist that's been on NBC for a while there. That they were filming in the middle of when 2020 hit and pandemic was coming, and they weren't able to finish the season fully. So they had like half of the last episode filmed, and so they had parts of it that were like the actual show, and then parts of it they actually filmed in with like really, really, really cheesy comic book looking animation. So like really cheap and so like we're able to like go back and forth on it, where it was like meanwhile in like a yellow box with like, it was really cool how they did it. But the people who were on the show were definitely not good voice actors. Like there definitely is people who can and cannot do that. You can act on a screen, but when there's no one else around you or trying to voice act, you're like, okay, that sounds like someone trying to voice act from their basement at their house. Like it doesn't work. That is
an interesting. At least that was a big swing. I appreciate.
Yeah, like I said, and try and they get renewed for another season and all that stuff. So like it didn't obviously kill them. So, but like,
you just got me thinking, because I was like, man, the history books on 2020 are going to be like when you're trying to read and the book was printed with a slight fold on the page, and you unfold it. That little ripple, and then the ink isn't quite right. So you're just trying to piece together the 2 sentences that connected the parts that you can actually legibly read. That'll be 2020, man, where people are just like, there's more than enough information, but it's all crimped together, and history will just go 2019 to 2022. We'll do with that. We can piece together,
Well, to me, it's like I'm always annoyed with my parents talking about when I was a kid. I was like, 20 years from now, it's exactly what we're going to be saying. The same thing. Like when I was a kid, we had 2 years where we couldn't do anything. And like
you kids, Let me tell you kids about Tiger King.
I wanted to go play basketball. It's raining. Yeah, there was an entire year where I couldn't play basketball because I wasn't allowed outside. Okay. 2 years.
I want to go
Uphill
play
both
basketball.
ways.
It's raining. Guess what? There was 2 years where I didn't see someone's face.
Yes. Or like they have to like put a scarf on to like go outside because it's so cold out. I'm like, you know what? We had to do that for an entire work day. Okay. I don't want to hear it. Be one of those crotchety old men talking about the pandemic. But I got to read, and that's the benefit of it. And honestly, I think that people who did probably find second place over the past number of months, people have been, I think, comic book. My friend's comic book store, Galactic Comics on Hammond Street in Bangor, he opened it in the pandemic.
Comics.
He opened it in the pandemic. Like he had his own like online thing, and he would go to cons and set up like his temporary shop and all that stuff. But he opened his brick and mortar shop August, I believe, of 19. And so he was only open for less than 6 months when all of a sudden I know he wasn't allowed to be open anymore. But now he's thriving. He had a second part-time job that he was working, or full-time job. He was doing this on the side, and he was able to quit that job all because people flocked to buying and reading comics. And I think that's a huge thing for people. So I've read way more comics in the past 2 years than I had read the 2 years prior. And that was mainly because I needed to keep myself occupied. And I was, I wanted to be outside. So I could watch something outside. So I'd read a comic book on my iPad or physical book or whatever.
I'm with you, dude. I'll stockpile comics all year until it gets nice out, and then I'll read them out. I have a porch, and that's my thing. Like I'll sit out there and I will have a cigar, but I do not condone them, but I like them. And then I'll sit on the porch and I will, me and my dog, and I'll just crush books. Like I'll all year, every Wednesday I'll go and I'll buy whatever is out, whatever I'm reading, and then when it's nice out, for sure. There's something different. I don't love reading comics inside. That's unless it's the digital thing at night.
Like it's digital at night. That makes me, honestly, I have a hard time falling asleep. And to me, it was because I think about all the things that I need to get done, either done or need to do, or at work or this or that. But if I can read Second Place, for an example, and go into a world of bodybuilding aliens, my mind goes to there and then starts to slowly fall asleep, and bam, I can go to sleep because I'm thinking about a world that doesn't really exist.
Yep.
And that's huge for me.
I love it, dude. I know that I am close to sleep when in my head I'll see something that I did not expect. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, hey, that Chihuahua made a Pop-Tart. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I know I'm good from here.
It's like I probably could watch TV. Like, I don't think I have a problem watching TV before I go to bed. If the TV was Daredevil, where it's not a real world, it's a fake thing. But I don't think I could watch CNN and go to bed because that's like real shit that's happening in the world right now.
We do. This is an interesting question. What do you and your wife watch to go to sleep?
Well, we have this thing where we watch a half an hour comedy, like at night sometime. Like if we throw a couple episodes on, and then before bed, it's more of a drama of some sort. And I like things that are like not realistic. Like I don't think I could watch, I don't know, Ozark, for an example, is one that we haven't got into yet, but I think I want to, but that would to me is like, it's too real. Like it's too, again, it would get me thinking about, I need to do this and I need to do that.
Sure.
So a lot of it's post-apocalyptic or some sort of crazy, out of this world kind of thing. And we've been watching Modern Family during the day or during like right after dinner. So I got to get that comedy in. I got to get the half an hour of like stupid, make me laugh. Sweet. Sometimes like dad jokes that are on there or whatever, and then an hour real life kind of show.
Second place was for me getting out of the seriousness, right? Because the books that I've written before were all deadly serious, and so. But my love is comedy, man. Like I'm like you. We watch our bedtime show is Mystery Science. Like that's what we put on to go to sleep because it's funny, and it's also you can like zone out and then zone in, catch a joke, zone back out, so it's fine. But comedy is my everything, man. Like I so getting second place going, having a comedy book, which is so weird because comics don't do as well, believe it or not. No,
and I think you did it right way because it's something like you comedy to me is the third or fourth thing you talk about when you talk about if I was describing this to someone. Like not that in a mean way, but like in a way that's like, okay, it's
I get
the mockumentary part. It's the bodybuilding, weightlifting, and aliens, and then you go to like the third thing, which is like, and it's funny. It's like also funny too. So like the mockumentary part, you some people, there's a dry humor in some mockumentary, things, but like there's actually funny things in here, and that's the part that I think that's what Marvel's been able to get away with too, is like make some serious movies that have comedy in it. And I think that's why I think they've been so successful, is that, like, you know, people laugh at a funeral. Not everybody, but someone at that funeral, someone cracked a joke, someone farted, someone did something that made someone laugh.
Yeah.
So when you watch a funeral on TV or on a movie and everybody's serious and everybody's crying, and like there's someone there joking or doesn't want to be there or whatever.
Or
and so that's what Marvel's been able to do, is like make something serious, but then someone cracks a dad joke.
It's like, usually the bare naked ladies who are crying at a funeral. If you can't understand what I mean, well, I think you soon will. No, it's very true. Like my buddy, name redacted, he lost his dad when we were younger, and I remember we were all laughing at the funeral home, you know, because we were trying to cheer him the fuck up, and people were looking at us weird, and I was like, eat shit, people. Like this kid just lost his dad. If he wants to laugh, he'll laugh.
Like, and it's like my wife is the kind of person I've ever seen in shows where like someone's laughing when it's something that's really serious, and it's just something in them is making them laugh at the serious thing. My wife's like that. So she'll like someone will get bad news and she's over there snickering in the corner. I'm like, that person just lost their dad. What are you doing? She's just coping with the death by laughing. And it's like, it's not like she's actually laughing at the death. That's how she's coping with it. She's something about it is, this world is crazy and I can only think about it if I laugh or something. And
that, I mean, it's actually a very sweet way of putting that. It was tough when she was my doctor and she had to give me that news, but she was snickering the entire time. That was embarrassing.
That's why she doesn't. She's an engineer, but that could actually be bad. She's an engineer and she's like laughing about how your like building collapsed or something. Oh, your building collapsed on you.
That's how she's an engineer.
I mean, you asked about what we're watching. I mean, I'm rewatching the Daredevil or the Marvel Netflix stuff.
You saw the news, right?
Yes, and that to me, did you hear that about the parent group? So there's this parent group saying that Disney is lessening their love for families by putting the Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, all that stuff on Disney Plus. Disney is also, I think it's today they put it on. Or Wednesday, I forget what day it is. It's they're putting it up, but they're putting parental controls too, so you can actually make it so your kids can't just stumble on, you know, Jessica Jones and Luke Cage going at it. But the whole thing was about how, like, what's next? You're gonna put strippers or strip teases at Epcot, and I was like, oh my god, you're comparing the idea of having parental controls on a streaming service that you can parent at your house and say don't watch these things to strippers at Disney World. I'm so confused on where the leap is going from there. I mean,
this to me is endemic of a bigger thing, you know, where you can pretend to be in control of the universe, but the universe will show you you're wrong. Mm-hmm. You can try to censor everything you want to censor, but you're never going to do it. And the truth is, what you actually can fucking do is educate yourself and show things to your children and your peers, but also with the caveat that these are specific and that this is not, you know, like actual conversation, actual, you know, interaction, instead of just no. And then that kid's the kid who honestly ends up being the stripper at Epcot anyway. So, you know, I've worked with kids for a long time. I work with kids outside of comics. That's what I do. And I have never seen abstinence work better, and I don't mean just in a sexual manner. I mean abstinence through of knowledge work better than careful and precise, you know, like being there and getting through information. Man, that gets
the censoring on Disney Plus is them wanting Disney the parent for them. Like, you have an ability to say, as a parent of myself, I'm only a 10-month-old, but I'm getting ready for this. As a parent, I can say, you're not allowed to watch this. I have a friend who's I work at Orono Brewing Company as my day job, and I used to be the tasting room manager or a general manager, so I'd see the customers come in and so on and so forth. I've moved over to the creative director role, so I'm in an office. But a couple of customers come in, Scott and Dana and their daughter Claire. She's just got into high school. I think she's like maybe in 8th grade. Maybe she's in 8th grade, but they love the Star Wars world and the Marvel world, and she's obsessed with it. It was really cool because she always nerds out when she comes in and talks to me and all that stuff. But they won't let her watch Deadpool, and I'm like, there you go. I understand you're letting him watch all these other things that are Marvel related, but you don't let them read or watch Deadpool because that's parenting. By saying you can't watch this because it's not appropriate for your age, and so by putting these Daredevil on Netflix or Disney Plus, it's like, yeah, just put a code on it, which you can, and turn off so they can't watch it. There you go. You've parented. You've done 10 seconds of your life.
10 seconds. You're right.
And to do it or educate them. This is not for you yet. I'm sorry. Like you can't drink until you're 21.
These are people who think that the world should revolve around their opinion instead of them actually having to adapt. And can I be honest with you? If any of those people are listening right now, ban my book because I could use the sales. Ban my book in all the schools you want to. Bible Belt, listen, Tennessee, get out in force and ban second. That piece of shit book is ruining the youth of America, and it needs to go.
Isn't that having a mouse recently too? Didn't that book banned in Tennessee and the sales went off the charts for that book? I'm like, yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. I need
ban this podcast.
I'm going to put that out on Facebook right now.
You don't think Joe Rogan has way more listeners now than he did before people trying to cancel him?
Right. Yeah. If anyone wants to ban second place, I am actively trying to make humans into aliens. Yes. So if that offends your view of your God, then please, by all means, tell the world that it's awful.
But you can get it. So just to circle back on that, you can purchase that Source Point Press. Is that the place where you'd send people to go get it if you were to buy it right now?
It is, and I'm sure that they're thrilled to be connected with my
yes, you're banning the book. Yeah,
of my denunciation of gods in the same breath. Source Point Press
and sourcepointpress.com. They have you have 3 issues available, which I do. What I respect about Source Point as well is the fact that the digital version is $1.99 and the physical version is $3.99. I could never understand why, when you went to buy a digital version of a book on like Marvel or any of these other places, that they cost the same amount as it does to print the book. That's just you. Like, I understand because they're probably trying to get people to buy the physical book because it's cost. I like the idea that I could buy all 3 of those back issues for $6, and there's no printing involved. You don't have to print anything. But I also am a big fan of physically holding things. So I'm usually the kind of person who would pay $6. So they'll buy the $10.99 digital and the $4 physical and have the physical copy.
I'll say this. The one thing that I am trying to do is with graphic novels that I do, I'm trying to make them more. So because I buy digital as well. And so if you do decide to, put on pants and go to the store and pick up a physical copy of a thing that I did, it's going to be different than it is when you buy the digital version. Yeah, I mean, like we did that with the Seance Room book. It was the first graphic novel that Source Point did with a die cut cover, because we wanted it to look like the door was opening to the ghosts, like it was your own story to go into the Seance Room, right? So, like with Second Place, Ed and I last night were talking about what we can do for the graphic novel release of that to make that something a little. I actually stay there for 1 second. Entertain the people for 1 second. I had these made up for when I do go to Comic-Cons and we have the book. If you decide to purchase, I made Second Place ribbons for the Humies.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Which is the bodybuilding competition in the book. Yeah.
Those are perfect. You use it as a nice bookmark.
And it's Strazzle Antenna Wax presents the Humies. Yeah.
I mean, so you'll have all 4 of those. So, I don't like to date these podcasts that much because I want people to listen to them whenever they want. But
sure.
End of April 22nd to the 24th is the Bangor Comic and Toy Con in Bangor, Maine. They, Ben will be there to sign books and sell books and all that stuff. All four, because I mean, is it still estimated that the 23rd of this month, the issue 4 will come out, or is that?
Yep. Nope. Okay. Still on schedule. Printings came in. We're good.
So you can get it now, but you can also pick it up, obviously, if you're in the Bangor area at a con or another con that you're going to anytime. Are you doing a bunch of cons this year? Or are you just doing a few? What's your plan for Comic-Con stuff?
Really scaled back this year, just a few. And I don't know why. I've got a bunch of stuff. I got a book coming out with Black Caravan this summer too, so I don't know why I'm scaling back. I should do more.
I think it's 2022 or 2023. 2023 is going to be the year of like people really doing what they really want. But also, like, I feel like for us as a brewery or in our brewing company, we like are going to do like 2 beer festivals this year. Like we used to do like one every month in the summer, twice a month in the summer. Like it was just like a thing we did. And when we weren't able to do them, we were forced not to do them. It was like, oh, this is so nice. Why do we have to do these things?
Yeah.
To now, are we going to pick and choose the ones we really want to go to? Either like you might come to Bangor this time and then not come for another 2 or 3 years because you did your Bangor area thing. And then, you pick and choose your ones. And obviously in Massachusetts now, there's like a gazillion. And, Rhode Island has a few and so on. So I know Northeast Comic Con just happened last weekend.
Yeah.
Bob was there. Bob Kachuk, because I can't even say his last name.
Yeah,
he's a great dude
Bob.
though. He was there, and I bet George Perez at it when it was up at a different spot up in the North Shore back in 2015, maybe.
Oh, yeah,
I met George Perez at the Northeast Comic Con.
But then
there's like Wicked Comic Con. There's the Boston Fan Expo, and there's all kinds of stuff going on in Massachusetts as well.
Yeah.
But if you're in the Bangor area, you come out and get
There's only one, baby, the Bangor Comic and Toy Show.
You gotta get a little autograph on there. You're gonna sign some books.
That's right. I'll sing "Bright Like a Diamond" for everyone there.
It's $4 for the book. It's $500 for the autograph. See him.
Yep, that's it, dude. I sign with a gold gold foil pen where it actually gold ink because I'm Goldsmith. So I got it.
Gold like gold flake ink. But it's funny because I will say that I do respect. I mean, speaking of George Perez, it's sad that he's on his way out. It did break my heart.
Did you
but
see
one of
the
the
picture
best
the other day of him holding?
The it's sad to or one of the best Comic-Con experiences I ever had was at the Northeast comic show, whatever they call it now. Is he basically said it was $40. He drew a picture with me with Sharpie of Thanos. One of my favorite villains of all time is Thanos, and this is pre-Infinity Gauntlet War movies. Kind of free, but like and it's beautiful. I have it hanging on my wall. It's priceless to me. He drew it right in front of me while I waited for him to do it. $40 for that. He took a photo with me, no cost. He signed 4 comic books for me, no cost. So to me, it was $40 for a photo, a drawing for me, and 4 comic book signatures to me that I'll never sell. They're all going to be priceless to me. And then next to him was Adam West, who was actively on Family Guy. I mean, rest in peace. Still getting residuals. He's getting Comic-Con. He's going to big Comic-Con small with $80 for a photo.
Yeah.
And $80 for an autograph. And I was just like, is his autograph worth $80? But no, but my biggest point was he was the nicest dude. It was amazing. And it was so much fun to think that $40 for a guy that's basically doing this for his retirement, because he was basically done drawing. He's not a 401k with Marvel and DC and all that stuff. That was all paid per, page. And it was so respectful to me to think that this guy is a legend. And for $40, I got all that stuff from him.
That same show, not that same year, but that same show, the Northeast Comic Con, Peter Laird gave me a free drawing of a turtle. So it's like, I don't know if it has to do with that con. It's just so cool to see that, because I met Jim Steranko at that con, Arthur Sidam, the guy who draws the Marvel zombies stuff. I think it's just that it's not one of these huge, fan expos.
Yeah.
It's so cost prohibitive in so many ways that people can't afford to not charge you top dollar for things. Like everyone's getting screwed from the top down in those things, but like smaller cons, it's nice. Speaking of Rob Guillory there, we were talking, and he's like, he's only doing small cons from now on because he's done with the game. And luckily he's at that point where he can do that. He doesn't need to do the big shows, but
but speaking on that, it's like this Steve Levine was at the Bangor Comic Con this past year in October when they did the delayed from like 6 times delayed Comic Con, and he charges for turtles like autographs, but he doesn't charge for anything else that he's done, which is kind of cool. It's like an idea that like he's known for turtles, so I'll just if a turtles thing needs to be signed or like a little remark, he'll charge for that. But like if you come up to the booth, don't buy anything, and you want. He's been part of the Murder Hobo and all that kind of stuff with Scout and all them. He's been doing some like variant covers and stuff like that. He signed those kind of things for me. Schmalky was like, go over to that table, have Steve sign that too. And that was cool to me. It was like, okay, his bread and butter is the turtles. So if the turtles, anything turtles, I'm going to charge $10 for an autograph or whatever it is. But if it's not a turtles thing, then I'm just going to sign it for no.
Yeah.
No
well,
cost,
like JM DeMatteis one time, it was at Baltimore Comic Con. And one of my all-time favorite comics is his book Moon Shadow from
Mm-hmm.
Vertigo. And I was like, hey man, can I get a signature? And he's like, well, I'm not really doing that right now. I gotta go. And if you don't know him, he's an extremely famous writer. He's done everything. And once I showed him that it was my original copy of Moonshadow, he totally changed gears, because he's like, oh, this dude's not trying to flip some shit. He's not trying to flip JLA or something like that. Like he actually read and enjoyed this book. And it's tricky, right? Because that feels very inside baseball, where it's like, sure, you get to not pay for things if you made artistically correct choices, you smart guy. This like ruling class of intellectualism, but and it seems to dishonor the people who are new fans and would only know him from certain things. But but I guess at the end of the day, if you've got hundreds of people constantly wanting you for Turtles, at a certain point, Steve, just you appreciate, and that's the thing where it's like, read a room, read the room, so to speak, if you're a fan, which I think you can do. You go to a couple Comic Cons, it doesn't take that long to get the gist of things. But
correct.
I feel I'm sorry, I don't know how long these shows usually go. I feel
right around. We'll be almost done now here. I just wanted to finish up this conversation about Comic Cons, because that was the George Perez thing. I have one of the comics he signed for me. I actually just sent out to CBCS because CBCS does verifications of signatures, whereas CGC only does if you get it signed there. Yeah. So me, it was like George Perez. I was supposed to get my Infinity Gauntlet #1 signed by George Perez at CGC. Like it's at CGC now, but he canceled his signature appearance there, which obviously I don't blame him.
I saw that.
But they were able to then move that over to Jim Starlin, which is pretty cool, because obviously Jim Starlin wrote the book. So it's like, now it's going to get a signature series of Jim Starlin instead of George Perez. Right. But CGCS will actually, or CBCS will actually verify, because they're a Beckett, signature verification. And I'm like, I know it's George Perez. I met the person. This is not something I bought on eBay hoping that it's real. Like, this should pass authentication. But it was the first U.S. appearance of Captain Britain in Marvel Team Up #65. And that to me was a book that I just had. I literally bought it because it was a cool cover. No idea that it was the first appearance of U.S. Captain Britain. And no one cared. It was probably $1 book when I bought it, because it was like, now that Captain Britain might become something in the MCU or whatever, the book is going up in value. But to me, I didn't give a crap. And so when I went and got it signed, I'm just like, this is me it's 2015, me coming back into the world of comic books. I know this book was drawn by George Perez, so I want this signed by George Perez. And I put it down in front of him, and he goes, "Oh, I don't see this book that often." And he signed it. I'm like, "Oh, that was cool to me." Like, it wasn't like me. Oh, look at me. I know what I'm doing. It was cool because he actually said that, and then he could have said it to 6 other people in the line with different books. He just makes it a conversation, something for him to say. But to me, it felt good. And again, I'll always remember that. I met Cooper Andrews, who plays on The Walking Dead, at the Bangor Comic Con, and he was one of the nicest people in the world. Again, you were nice to people at a Comic Con, and I'm going to remember you forever. I'm going to buy everything you ever do. Right. This past Comic Con, again, Dana Snyder. Do you know Dana Snyder? He does the voice of Master Shake. Yes. Yeah. He was at the Comic Con in Bangor, and he needed to record a voice. We haven't talked much about this because at the time the show was coming, and we weren't able to talk about it yet. Well, the show that he was supposed to record a voice for ended up going with a different person's voice, so it never actually aired, and so we can't actually talk about it because it's not public. But he used my recording equipment for podcasting to record the voice for a show that was supposed to be on TV.
That's cool.
And so the smallest things to me at Comic Cons, and I talked to Jay and Will, the guys who own the Bangor Comic Con, about the experiences that you'll get to meet these people. And again, and I'm not saying this, and I hope to God that you actually get to go and make a Netflix show off of Second Place or Hulu or wherever you want to go. HBO Max would be a perfect spot. But if you do end up meet someone like yourself at a Comic-Con, because this is the time you're actually going to be able to have a conversation with someone that later on in your life, you'd be like, oh, I met him at the Comic-Con, and now he's a executive producer of a TV show, and it's comic book, and you have issue 1 and all this stuff. This is the time to meet these people.
Or even better, you meet me at a Comic-Con, and then years later you see that that I'm on the streets, and you go, well, at least I'm not that guy. So either way, that experience for you is cathartic. It's
or you're dead and the comic book's worth more because you're not alive anymore.
God willing, that's my game. That's my game plan.
Oh, that sucks. I met that guy at a Comic-Con once. He needed money for gas or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he was super. He kept like talking about this like alien bodybuilding book, but no one had read it. I felt bad.
So come meet him at the 2022 Comic-Con. Come meet him outside of this 2023 Comic-Con with a tin cup waiting for money for
Yes, exactly. Right. We can talk about how much you like the book as I'm parking your car. It'll be a great time for everybody.
And people are like, oh, you're back. No, I never left. I couldn't afford to get back home because no one bought my comic book. So I just decided to sit here and wait until the mall is at the mall this year. And the mall is not a busy place outside of Comic-Con in Bangor. So you wouldn't make much money from people by panhandling out there.
Is there a hot topic? Can I go to a hot topic?
There is a hot topic still. Great. There may be. The last time I was there. Well, when Comic-Con happened in the fall, there was a Journeys. And someone just told me yesterday or day before yesterday that there isn't a Journeys anymore. So from October to now, it's closed. So
R.I.P. Journeys. Where will I get my poorly tie-dyed Cowboy Bebop shirts now? Yes. And my Converse All-Stars that I can get at the 8 other stores in the mall. The other thing is anyone who's watching or still watching by this point, if you've made it this far, congratulations. Secondly, go out and buy my other books, Seance Room. It's a Twilight Zone meets Tales from the Crypt horror comic, one shots, all good. RV9 from Mad Cave, and then coming out very soon from Black Caravan, Mr. Schmalke's label there, who we name checked, is a book called Ghosts on the Water, which will be like Moana meets Pirates of the Caribbean.
There you go. See, I feel like nowadays when I talk to a local comic book artist, someone from New England, it's like at one point you drop Schmalke's name and the next one Ben Bishop's name. Those two names are always dropped on podcasts when we talk about local artists or local writers.
Joe, I'm very lucky because Joe and I like a lot of the same stuff. Like, and there's not a lot of people who enjoy really low grade horror movies. Everyone on earth has seen Scream. Everyone on earth has seen Silence of the Lambs, but it takes a special person to be able to talk in depth about Basket Case, right? Yes. And Joe's one of those dudes who I'll be like, yo, man, I was just, checking out this thing. It's from 1974. And he'll be like, yeah, it's this movie with these. And I'm like, yeah, dude. He's like, yeah, I watched it. Like, watched it last night. And so I really like Joe for that. Because outside of comics, which we don't actually talk a lot about when we're together, like we talk because he's got that deep cut horror knowledge, which I really appreciate. He even does the Billy Bob the drive-in nights which I got it when I'm up there. I hope we do get to do something because I always see them posting about like the wing challenges and stuff, and it's dude, like Bangor from Boston, you wouldn't think 4 hours, man.
Yes.
Like, it's a hike. So
my parents live in Connecticut, and so
wow,
it's a haul. It's about 5.5 hours to about Hartford from my house, and that's why it's funny because I moved back here. I lived in Haverhill and in Andover, Lowell area from 2009 2019. No, it's 2007 to 2017.
Oh wait, was the mill number 5 there when you were there?
I don't think so. They were building it. They were renovating it or something. I just did
a one-day show over there, and there's like a record store there. And it's like kick-ass now.
Yeah, I lived right next to the Songus Arena. There's a big tall building there. There's a parking lot there. This is obviously anybody listening to this from California or anything else. I've had no two shits that we're talking about.
I think there's a lot of Lowell Ice Cat fans out there,
But I was just like, so I lived there for like 10 years, and so everything was close and so on and so forth. And they came and visited me, and I went and visited them, no problem. But when I moved back here in 2016. I didn't see them for like 3 years. I was like, my wedding in 2020 was when they actually came and visit me up here. Just like, why the hell would I want to come all the way up there? And then over the past 10 months, they've been here like 4 times because I had a kid. It's like, obviously you don't want to come see this stupid face, but you want to see my replica of me. Come on,
kidding me, dude? They've seen that dumb face for years. They don't even see.
Right?
They don't
even see me again. Jeez.
Yeah, they know how that story ends, right? The kid though. That's
finishing up really quickly. Talking about Scream, the voice of Ghostface will be at the Bangor Comic Con as well. So if you wanted to meet him too.
Oh, no way. That's pretty cool.
The Ghostface, we have there's a Jason, Kane Hodder will be there. There's a Leatherface. and the guy who did stunts on Halloween. So you're talking big picture horror people gonna be there. So
that's pretty cool.
yeah. So
I wonder
yeah.
if it's Derek Mears. Do you know if that's it?
No, it's not Derek Mears. No.
Oh, okay.
I forget his name now. This is me stupid. Jay and Will from the Comic Con are gonna kill me for it. But you're on Instagram.
I am. Find me at Mr. Ben AU. AU periodic table for gold, right? We love that. Clever. He's a writer.
And don't go to Twitter because he's not on Twitter anymore.
No, did you check that?
Yes.
Yeah. No.
And sourcepointpress.com. Buy his books.
Comixology. You can get them on Comixology. If you're reading through there, you can do that. You can still order them from your stores. Come just shoot me a message on Instagram. I have variants, and I can even send you a nice second place ribbon as well. And I write custom horror stories on the back of vintage postcards. So if you want to mess with someone and send them a postcard of their own horror story through the mail, hit me up.
Absolutely. So appreciate it, man. Love talking comic books. We'll have to get you back on at some point too. Maybe when you come up for the Comic-Con, we'll do something fun too with that. We can do something in person.
That'd be great. We'll talk later. We could maybe do like a contest or something too. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But I'll let you go, so you don't have to hold the phone for very much longer. But I really appreciate you coming on. We'll talk soon, and I appreciate everything you're doing. Keep it up.
Thanks for having me on, man. And thank you for rescheduling and all that. I really appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. Have a fun day.
Bye, dude.